In the stillness of rural Bavaria, where dark woods stretch beyond the horizon and time itself seems frozen in the soil, there once stood a remote homestead. It was called Hinterkaifeck. To the outside world, it was just a quiet farm tucked away in the middle of nowhere, a place of hard work, cold winters, and silent nights. But in March 1922, this modest farm would become the center of one of Germany's most haunting and bizarre murder cases. A crime so unsettling, it still baffles investigators and historians more than 100 years later. 6 lives were ended, no witnesses, no confessions, no arrests. And yet someone stayed, lived there, slept there, ate their food, just meters from the corpses they had created. This is the chilling true story of the Hinterkaifeck Murders, a case still whispered about across Germany, and a nightmare that never truly ended. Hinterkaifeck was home to 6 people. Andreas Gruber, the 63-year-old patriarch, stubborn, secretive, and rumored to be abusive. His wife, Celia, aged 72. Their widowed daughter, Victoria Gabriel, 35 years old, whose husband was believed to have died in World War I. Victoria's 2 children, Celia, age 7, and Joseph, just 2, and a newly hired maid, Maria Baumgartner, who had only arrived hours before the murders. From the outside, it was a typical farmstead, but within those walls, unease was festering. The Grubers were not beloved by neighbors. In fact, they were often avoided. Andreas had a reputation for violence and cruelty. Even more disturbingly, there were widespread rumors that he was engaged in an incestuous relationship with Victoria, his own daughter. Locals suspected it. The church had raised questions, but nothing was ever proven. The family lived in near isolation, miles from the nearest village, with only dense forests surrounding their home. There was no electricity, no phone line, just wind, animals, and shadow. And then things began to change. In the days leading up to the massacre, Andreas Gruber noticed strange and alarming signs. First, it was footprints. Footprints in the freshly fallen snow, leading from the edge of the forest directly to the back door of the house. But oddly, there were no prints leading back. Then, inside the attic, strange noises, footsteps, movement. But when he checked, no one was there. A key to the house mysteriously disappeared, and an unfamiliar Munich newspaper was found lying inside the kitchen. None of them had purchased it. At night, the family dog barked relentlessly at empty corners. Windows creaked, doors swayed. Neighbors pleaded with Andreas to go to the police, but the old man refused. Perhaps he didn't trust the authorities, or perhaps he knew something he didn't want to share. Unbeknownst to the Grubbers, their killer was likely already inside the house, hiding, waiting. On the night of March 31st, 1922, the horror began. One by one, 4 members of the family were lured, possibly tricked into the barn. We may never know how the killer did it. Perhaps a scream, a noise in the dark, a broken fence, something to draw them in, one at a time. And there, in the shadows, the killer struck. The weapon? A mattock, sharp, heavy pickaxe-like tool used for digging, perfect for brutal, close-range murder. Andreas Gruber was the first to fall, his skull crushed, face disfigured. Then his wife, Celia. Then Victoria. And tragically, young Celia, just 7 years old, whose body showed signs that she had survived for hours after the initial attack, tearing out her own hair in agony before finally dying. Inside the house, the killer then turned to the remaining 2. The maid, Maria Baumgartner, was murdered in her bed, still in her work clothes. And baby Joseph, just a toddler, was bludgeoned to death in his crib. 6 murders, one night. No one heard a thing. Days passed. The postman noticed that newspapers were piling up. The neighbors grew suspicious when no one saw the family in church that Sunday. Finally, on April 4th, concerned villagers went to check on the Grubbers. What they found would haunt them forever. Inside the barn, they discovered 4 mutilated bodies, piled beneath hay and wooden boards. In the house, the remaining 2 were found in their rooms, cold, still, and covered with blankets, as if someone had tucked them in after death. But here's the most chilling detail. The house had been lived in. The cows had been milked. The chickens had been fed. Meals had been eaten. The chimney had fresh ash, indicating recent fires. The killer, whoever they were, had stayed in the home for days after the murders, eating the family's food, sleeping under their roof, all while the dead lay silently around them. This was no crime of passion. This was cold, methodical, deeply disturbing. The local police quickly realized they were in over their heads. A special investigative unit from Munich was brought in, but they were already at a disadvantage. The crime scene had been contaminated by neighbors, who had trampled through the home before authorities arrived. Worse still, there was no clear motive. No valuables were missing. No sign of robbery. No evidence of sexual assault. Over 100 suspects were interrogated, ranging from disgruntled neighbors to wandering vagrants. Some pointed fingers at Victoria's rumored lover, others at her deceased husband, Col Gabriel, suggesting he faked his death in the war and returned for revenge. Theories multiplied. The incest rumors resurfaced, suggesting someone may have killed the family to punish Andreas. Others blamed mental illness, local jealousies, or even supernatural forces. Desperate, investigators sent the victims' skulls to Munich for forensic study. But during the chaos of World War II, the skulls vanished. To this day, they've never been found. In the end, no arrests were made. No one ever stood trial. The case went cold. Over the decades, hundreds of theories have been proposed. Some believe it was a jealous suitor of Victoria. Others think the killer was someone the family trusted, perhaps even another relative. One theory claims the killer was already living in the attic, watching the family for days, emerging at night, then slipping back into the shadows. Some say the murderer was a soldier from the war, mentally broken, wandering through the countryside. In 2007, German police conducted a final review using modern profiling techniques. They announced they had a prime suspect, but refused to release the name out of respect for living descendants. The case officially remains unsolved. In 1923, a year after the murders, the Hinterkaifeck farmhouse was demolished. All that remains today is a weathered memorial cross, surrounded by overgrown grass and whispering trees. Locals still avoid the site. Visitors report a heavy, suffocating silence, as if the land remembers. The Hinterkaifeck murders are more than a mystery. They're a window into the darkest corners of the human psyche. A story of fear, of evil hiding in plain sight, and of a family destroyed while the world looked on helpless. Even a century later, the questions remain. Who committed the murders? Why did they stay in the house? And how did they vanish without a trace? Thank you for watching Crimes Through Time. If this story sent chills down your spine, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss another historical mystery. We want to hear from you. Do you believe the murderer was someone the Grubbers knew? Or was it a drifter from the forest, vanishing like a ghost? Drop your theory in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and beware what lurks in the silence.